I welcome you to the lecture 29, introduction on transition to organic crop production. So before this we have discussed about the organic management of crops, how we can grow by nutrient management or the pest management, land preparations in general for the as a general for crops, and specifically we have discussed for the cereals, pulses, oil seeds and vegetable crops. So, also plantation crops. This lecture we will go for the planning, especially when somebody goes for the organic farming, how can plan organic farming, and before planning he has to as a process of planning you should know how can convert from conventional farming to organic farming, from the conventional farming to organic. So, the transition periods. So, before the product is sold as organic products, as a branded as organic. So, he needs to go for the transition, the farm has to go for transition from conventional to organic. So, what is the transitions? And so, this lecture will discussing on what is the transition, time required transitions, and the make a plan, how you can steps go for the transition, so that you can have a proper way of the organic farming. So, you can sell your products, you can sell your produce as a organic products, or you can you can get certified as a organic product. So, the question is why transition to organic. So, these things also we have discussed the preliminary classes. You go for the why organic, then that is why transition to organic, when because studies of farmers participating the or the practicing the organic farming for many years found some of the common regions or common the problem they are facing. So, that they want to convert to organic. So, as you see in European countries or see the Australia, so there is a huge conversion from the conventional farming to organic. So, India there is a scope and there is a opportunity, there is a market, proper market of organic farming. So, we can convert, the farmers can convert to organic farming. So, the reason for conversion is say effect of chemicals on health. We have discussed because of the using chemical fertilizers or the chemical pesticides, that has direct impact on the health of the human being, as many of the disease they are regulated by the food what we take. So, how can control the food quality by using the organic way of farming, you can have a better quality of food, so that we can have better health. So, because of health problem. And next is the effect of conventional farming on soil quality and soil conservations. So, this is also because soil quality is deteriorating, there is a degrading soil quality over the years, use of the chemical fertilizer, heavy use of the chemical fertilizer and pesticides. Not only soil quality, the groundwater quality also deteriorated, and also the environment is also polluted due to use of the chemical. So, how to by avoiding the use of the chemical fertilizers or chemical pesticides, by converting to organic we can maintain a good soil health at the building with organic carbon, good organic carbons, because organic carbon having the soil having higher organic carbon, that increases the cation exchange capacity of the soils, having higher cation exchange capacity, that means that makes the plant available nutrients increasing, and also that is accessible to the crops for the better growth and development, and also that have a better air quality, good air to breathe having organic farming. So, that is one problem because of the conventional farming, because there is degradation of soil quality and also soil conservation, soil is getting eroded, either the water and the wind erosion because of the bad quality, degraded soil quality. So, that need to protect using the organic farming. Next is dissatisfactions with the conventional farming practices. That means the farmers how say dissatisfaction of farmers with the conventional farming practices means, in India also we can see use of the chemical fertilizers, the yield has reached a plateau. So, there is no further scope of enhancing yield, but at the same time we need to increase yield, because to feed the growing populations, at the same time shrinkage of the land area is getting decreased year after years. So, we have to increase the productions they, as I said, double the productions by 2022 to feed the growing population. So, use of the chemical fertilizer is not going to meet your requirement, meet the demand of the productions, then we need to somehow the do some other practices, other way technologies, so that the production level can be enhanced from the limited area. Then decline in the family farm and the rural communities because of the intensive use of chemical fertilizer pesticides. So, that may be one of the reasons. Then opportunity to improve the farm profitability by doing organic farming. If you can have a better quality of the produce, that means you are the either the fruits, vegetables, and also there is a we will discuss about integrated farming concepts. That means you have the integration of many components together, not only the crops, you have your field crops, you have your vegetables like vegetables, and you have the fruits, and in addition to crops you will have the livestock, where you can get milk and also meat, fish, and also the compost as integration of these farming systems, where there is a possibility of having the higher income for a farm family. So, that is what we are going to the transitions, why the farmers are interested to convert their land to organic, because of the regions I have cited some regions is applicable for all over the national and also the international importance. When you go for the transition, the consideration for transition to organic systems, will keep those things in mind, those points in mind. Organic crop systems can be more labor and management intensive than conventional cropping systems. So, because in case of the organic farming, to protect the crops from the weeds, pests, especially for the weeds, we need to follow many physical methods or the mechanical methods for the weed control, and very regular practice of those methods, so that we can keep the crop free from weeds. Similarly, for pest and diseases. So, somehow as the technology interventions is starting at very poor in case of the organic farming. So, as a labor consuming and also the time taking process in case of the organic farming as compared to conventional farming. Keeping ahead of weeds, just discussed weed, insects and disease problem. Through these observations, monitoring, identifications, and timely response is the most efficient management strategy of organic production systems. So, that means as you are going for this fully organic way, time that the as such we discussed many, the organic farming system itself is a preventive measure for many weeds, pest, diseases. In addition to this, we have to control some of the practices like your level C of the pest management. In case there is a populations of the many pests and diseases, then you have to go for level C botanical pesticides, the extracts from many of the plants as discussed, that can be used in regular interval to keep the crop free from many pests and diseases. Then transition to organic farming takes time and patience, of course, depending on the farming system, the crops produced, and the transition approach. It can take 3 to 5 years, especially for the when you go for the conversion or transition from conventional farming to organic farming. Usually after 3 years, that means 36 months, the product can be sold as a organic product. So, before that, when you go for transitions, for before that 2 years, it can be sold as a transition to organic, not exactly as a labeled as organic product. Only the 36 after 36 months, that means the third year the crops grown, that can be sold, that can be labeled as a organic product, but the preceding years, that is 24 months or the 2 years crops, those can be labeled as transition to organic, not exactly the organic. Crop yields may decline during the initial transition periods until a balance in the system is reached, but with time the yields will rebound. That means during transition periods, as we are not applying any chemical fertilizers, we are doing fully organic way. So, there are some crops the yield may not be attained as of the chemical fertilizer. There may be slightly decline in the yield. So, the farmers should be or the manager should be prepared to about the loss of yield, but this yield can rebound with time, because if you see the soil fertility, till the soil fertility gets built up, then the yield can be maintained from organic farming same as of the chemical farming. You know, the soil, there are the carbon pool, that is very important for maintaining the soil fertility or the health of the soils or meeting the nutrient demand of the crop. So, the building the carbon pool, there are mainly the labile carbon pool as you say, and the stabilized carbon pool, and this labile carbon pool that supply nutrients in the regularly each and every years, that comes from the recent addition of the organic residues to the soils. But the stabilized carbon pool, it takes longer periods to build, and the stabilized carbon pool, it may take around 10 years or more than 10 years to build the stabilized carbon pool, and the soil physical properties is influenced by the stabilized carbon pools, and that makes a holistic soil improvement as a physical properties and chemical properties. So, after the stabilized carbon pool is built up, then the soil is able to supply nutrients from the stabilized carbon pool. So, during that, after that periods, you can minimize the use of organic residues, and soil is capable enough to support the nutrient demand of the crops from this stabilized carbon pool, but it will take some time. After maybe it may take some time in tropical climate like us, it may take 10 years or more to build the stabilized carbon pools, where after which the yield can be same as of the chemical fertilizer. So, that means it is a time taking process, it takes some time to have the same yield from the organic farming as of the chemical farming. Some vegetables and fruit crops are easier than others to grow organically. For a successful transition, begin with crops that are easier to produce organically. This is a very important point when we are going for transition to organic agriculture. Usually, what type of crop we should select, that is very important at the beginning of the transitions. So, during the beginning of the transitions, we should select the crops that require less of nutrients. If you select a crops requires high of nutrient demand, as the organic fertilizer is not able to meet the nutrient demand of the crop, being a slow release pattern, then there is a loss in yield. The farmer suffers a loss at the beginning of the year. To avoid those losses, we can have the crops require less nitrogen, so that the yield can be maintained as good as the chemical fertilizers. This is very important in case of organic farming, what type of crop we should choose at the during the transition periods, at the beginning of transitions, so that yield loss can be substantiated, because there is no loss in yield by having the crops of that groups, they require less nutrient. Then after gaining experience, begin adding the more difficult crops in subsequent season, because when at the beginning years you grow the crops of the less nutrient demanding. So, as you progress with the transition periods, then you can add the crops of the high nutrient demanding. So, during that period the soil fertility somehow is built up, and we can maintain the yield of the organic farming somehow as good as the chemical farming, because those crops of high nutrient demanding, those crops can be selected at the latter stage of transitions in case of the organic farming. And the transition approach, how we go for transition. So, one is called gradual transition, that means we are also discussing where one class of inputs is withdrawn at a time, slowly discontinuing the use of synthetic inputs while introducing organic management practices into the system. That means not fully withdrawing the chemical farming, chemical fertilizers, especially as fertilizer is concerned. So, for those crops like cereal crops, those are high nutrient demanding crops. If you go for the fully organic farming, fully organic nutrient management, then you may not able to maintain the yield as good as chemical fertilizer. In those cases, you can gradual transition means, so you can have 50-50, that means 50% of nutrients supplied through organic and rest 50% through chemical fertilizers, so that the nutrient demand of the crop is made to have a production same as of chemical fertilizer. Maybe you can have a higher production as compared to chemical fertilizer if you go for the integrated nutrient management. And slowly, as the soil gets built up, slowly you can reduce the dose of the chemical fertilizer and you can convert fully to organic system. That is a gradual transition, as you say. So, this approach requires a longer transitions time, but can minimize the yield loss during the conversion. So, in this case we have to go for the longer periods, not exactly as you say 3 to 5 years, because minimum transition required 3 years. So, in this case you can go more number of years, you can add more years as you go for the slow transition or the gradual transition to organic systems. And if you see as the management practice, if you see the field, so in a farm, depending upon the farm area, whether you want to convert the whole farm to organic at a time, or you can go for the part by part conversions. So we can go for the one field at a time. So that means the part by part. So it involves using organic management practices on a portion of your farm, converting to organic production part by part over time. So instead of converting the whole farm to organic, we can divide the farm into maybe 4 parts, or depending upon the farm size 4 parts, and first part can be taken care of the transition to organic, and the rest 3 parts can continue as conventional. And the first year, second year again second part can be taken into the transition to organic, and rest 2 parts can continue as a conventional. So likewise gradually we can convert the whole farm into the organic. So that is the best approach. Instead of going for the at a time from the beginning, we should not jump to organics for the whole farm. We can divide the farm into several parts, many parts, and each part you can convert to organics, and after a few years the whole farm can be converted as a organic systems. So the the one field at a time by part conversion is better as compared to the conversion of whole farm, because whole farm conversion you may not sustain the loss. If there is a loss, there will be huge loss in the yield to the farmers if he goes for converting the whole land to organic at the beginning of the year. So instead of that, you can go for the part by part conversion. So economic loss can be compensated from this chemical farming. This approach provides the opportunity to gain experience with organic production methods on a more manageable scales before converting the entire farm and minimizing the risk. So this is very important when you go for the organic conversion. So better to go by part instead of having whole farm to organic systems. So there is a whole farm where the use of all synthetic inputs is discontinued the entire from at the beginning. So that is the risky approach, because farmers may not sustain the financial loss by converting the whole farm into organic. Rather, if you go for the part by part, so this will be a better alternative. And what is the in a transition what the transition period? So as you say, the for the land to be eligible for organic certifications, prohibited substances must not be applied to the land for a period of 3 years immediately preceding harvest of the crop. If the crops which you are planning to be labeled as organic product or to be sold as organic product, so before 3 years of that product, the land should not have any chemical fertilizers or pesticide, then only that product can be labeled as organic product. So minimum 3 years is required for transitions or conversion from the conventional product to the organic product. So growers with little or no farm experience will find the transitions to organic somehow may be difficult. A primary consideration is the need for technical product informations. As with the new business, there are many factors to consider to ensure the success. So that means when you go for the transition, a strong business plan ensures a sound approach. A business plan describes such questions when you go for the business plan, a transition to organic, then these questions you should the persons, the manager should keep those questions in mind: who you are, what you plan to achieve, what are you are going to produce, how and when you expect to get started, how you will overcome the risk involved, and what are the estimated returns. So these questions when you ask before making a plan or going for the transition plan or having a set of mind that okay, we are going to convert our farm to organic or the conversion to organic or transition to organic. So these are the questions or the business plan. If you go business plan, when you go for the management, so there are 4 pillars of management as discussed. That means if you are making a plan, crop planning, like any management, any business, industry, agriculture is taken as industry modes, how it can be profitable. So for that, for management, you have the 4 major components. One is known as resource. resource, technology, market and institutions. These four are the major pillars of the management: resource, technology, market and institutions. So, these four, when you consider these four pillars of management, then you will have a business plan or the plan of the organic farming or the conversion. Before that you ask the questions who you are, what competency, how you can take up the challenge, how you can convert, what knowledge you have, that means what knowledge you have on organic farming, whether you have sufficient knowledge for converting your farm to organic farming. So, this management require resources. Technology means technological know-how, how the management, crop planning, the selections, rotations, one crop after another crops, input management and the plant protection measures, land types. So, whether that technical competency or the technical knowledge we have enriched. So, who you are, so that questions must be asked, we must enrich. And if you have the technology, you are equipped with technology, then resources means you should have the resource, that means of course the field is the main resource, what field you have, the weather is the main resource, what weather you have, and also the financial resource from where you can get the funding for doing that one. Once you have technology, resource, then go to the market, that links to a planning, what market is there, which crop you have to produce, what is your plan, then where is the market, where you have to sell it, because farmers, they are mostly our farmers, because farmers, their economic conditions is very poor, because you do not get a proper income for the farmers, because they do not get a proper market for their produce, because they do not get the real benefit, whatever they are selling, the benefit goes to the third party or the persons who are involved in the marketing channel, they to get the benefit, farmers they do not get the real benefit. So, to have a proper output or the proper return from the farming, we should know the market and the market potentials, where to sell the market, where to sell your produce, so that we can have a higher return. And same thing also, we need a proper institutions which can provide the feedback knowledge, the technological support or the know-how, consultancy, time during the production practices. So, these four are really important, and before that you should if you ask the questions, then you have to gather the informations on these four major pillars of the management, and that will help you to go for the organic crop management. So, there are some steps how you can go for the the organic standards. If you see what the standards of organic standards, the land must be managed as organic for 36 months as discussed prior to first organic harvest, and during the last 12 months of this transition periods, it must be under supervision of an organic certification body. So, when you are applying for the organic certifications of your product, so that means 36 months is must for the transitions, and last 12 months this should be under proper supervision of the organic certification body. The goal of the enterprise must be for a complete transition of its productions. Parallel productions of the same product is not allowed in case of the, if you are going for the organic certification for a particular product. So, that product should be grown only organic during transition period to parallel production, means organic and the non-organic should not be followed. And the production must have distinctly defined boundary, that means if you go for the transition, you are not going to converting the whole farm to organic at one step. If you are going by part, then there is proper boundary between the organic plot and non-organic plots, that is the buffer zone. Buffer zone should be created between organic and non-organic. So, the length of the buffer zone should be minimum of 8 meters. So, between the buffer zone length should be minimum of 8 meters if you are going for the part by part conversion of organic, inorganic or the conventional to organic farms. So, between the conventional farm and organic farm, at least 8 meters buffer zone should be there, and this 8 meters you can use the crops or any maybe permanent hedgerows or crops can be done, but without application of any fertilizers or anything, that can be grown as a control plot, no application of fertilizers or pesticides as a control. So, that can be in the buffer zone can be utilized for growing those crops. So, this much of length, because to avoid the any movement of the water or nutrients from the or the pesticides from the chemical farming to organic farming. So, at least 8 meters buffer zone should be there between organic and the chemical plots. Production units cannot alternate between the organic and non-organic randomly. So, that is one of the limitations when you go for the organic certifications or the organic standard that should just carry. So, if you go for the steps transition, how you can go for the transition? So, first as you discussed, we should gain the knowledge, we should have the knowledge, what type of knowledge we need, the step transitions. That means the we already have discussed, because somebody farmer or the man going for the transition, he should be equipped himself with the knowledge, he should have gain the knowledge on the needs for the field productions, on farm processing and market of the crops, and then set the goals, learn the organic standards, how to go for conversion, minimum time period requires, and the transition periods from the conversions, understand the difference between the previous production experience and your expectations in organic, what assets and resources are needed for transition of your farm, use consultants or seek advice from the experienced peoples on these sectors. Do not underestimate the knowledge gap. In many cases, it will take several years to do the appropriate research. So, you have to enrich yourself, gain the knowledge, you should have equipped yourself about the organic farming technology, so that you can take the job. Then make a plan. You can have a plan. Organic standards requires organic plan outlining the details of transitions, productions, preparations, handling and management practices. So, update the plan annually and include the record keeping to ensure that product traceability. In many cases, the plan becomes a major part of the application of organic certification. When you go for the organic certification, the plan is required. We should have proper plan starting from the land preparations, or you are making planning and up to the harvest or the post harvest, the plan should be documented properly, so that this can be used for the certification process, and then make a good plan. So, that includes the crop rotations as discussed earlier. So, crop rotations part of the organic farming. And the third one is determine how the crop will be marketed. The market is very important as discussed, because if you do not know where to sell your output, so you do not plant it. So, that is very simple. So, when you go for the business plan or make a profitable organic farming approach, as a profitable plan, then in this case we should know where is our market, where to sell our produce. If you do not know the market, so better not to plant the crop. So, the plan should set a reasonable expectation for normal situations, and also we have a alternative plan. So, in case of that we can if some changes required, that can be also taken care to accommodate any changes due to weather or the conditions. So, there should be some alternate solution. Then you should have the land also so this is the selection of crops. We will discuss also the next class what type of crop we should choose in case of planning. So, usually as you have discussed, so this slide talks about the land with crops, what type of crop you should choose. So, usually as you discussed from the beginning of the transition periods, we should choose a legume crop or forage crops. Those crops they require less of nutrients, so that so there will be yield loss will be minimum or no, you can say, because those crops are require less nutrient. If you go for organic and incorporating adding the crop in transition periods, so there will be no loss in yield, because their nutrient requirement is less. You can get the same yield as of chemical farming, and that can moreover that can build up the soil fertility. So, this is how the land management if you go for the transition periods. Then the inputs, what type of inputs you need, especially go for the seeds. Organic seeds or the planting stock must be available. If not, if organic seeds planting stocks is not commercially available, the following points may be permitted with the documentation that organic seed is not available. The seed grown only with the substances in accordance with the organic standards, and non-organic untreated seeds and planting stock that can be used. Non-organic perennial planting stock may be used provided such plants have been maintained in accordance with organic standards for at least 1 year prior to harvest of the organic products. So, these are the some of the points to be considered when you go for the organics. Then as per the as you make a plan of organics, as you go for the seed selections and the lands, and before that I say your planning, that means you should know what is your goal, who are you, what is your knowledge, what is your goal, and make a proper plan and document, and that should be documented. And In that case, if you go for organic farming with all steps following, minimum 36 months required for transition from conventional to organic, and last 12 months should be under proper supervision of the certification body. That means, you need to apply for organic certifications. So, submit the complete application and the fees for the organic certifications, then there will be to the certification body. So, there will be initial review of your applications. After the review, then initial review letter comes, request for any clarifications or list the records to have ready for inspections when the teams in the visit for inspections. So, that make a list, then the inspector is assigned for your farm. Then the date is also fixed for the inspection day, and on that inspection report received back to the office. After the inspection, the report is received, then the report goes for the review. So, final review and the certification decision is taken, and the decision letter that gives the reminder or possible questions or items still needs before the decisions, or the identifies any areas of non-compliance if applicable. So, that is also mentioned in the decision letter. If there is any further information required, the information may be sought. Then after that, following certificate may be issued. Everything goes well as per the organic standards, then certification is issued by the certifying agency, or it may ask for the pending further informations or denied if information is not received. So, this is the process if you go for the organic farming. So, you need to apply for the organic certification, and that goes through certification process. Finally, you can get your certification. So, this is how the transition periods, during transition you need to apply for the organic certifications, and the last 12 months of the transitions. So, there will be inspections, proper supervisions by the certification body, and they are satisfied with all the norms of the organic standards, then you can get the organic certification. With this, I close the lecture. Thank you.